Hello and welcome to Bloomberg Quint. It's back to business after all the festivities, but the benchmark indices, the Nifty and the Sensex, were choppy throughout the session today, fluctuating between gains and losses. But if you look at the Nifty, it ended almost unchanged at 8626, giving up those mid-session gains just in the last hour of trade, where it lost close to 40 points, but banks and IT stocks were laggards, while it was metal stocks which were really amongst the top gainers. Broadly, the market breadth was negative, tilted more in favor of the declines, advanced decline ratio of 2:3. But Akam, the good news was that the October manufacturing PMI came in at a 22-month high of 54.4. But this is actually the third day of the November series, and what are you picking up from the futures and options market?
Well, not too much, because once again we are closing flat, and we have seen Nifty continue to remain range bound. Even though you've seen some intraday volatility, it's not been it hasn't reflected in the indices. So as far as the futures are concerned, we've seen less than 1% addition towards open interest in the November series for the Nifty, which means we have seen a slight amount of fresh longs building in, but nothing to take home. As far as the range concerns, well, today is a day where we've seen a substantial increase as far as open interest in the 9,000 call is concerned, which explains, the activity here, and this is where you see the range here. So while we have seen a lot of open interest in the 8,500 put, 9,000 call now takes over as the one with the maximum open interest. But once again, it's been a very quiet day of trade, Shraddha, and as far as the underlying variables go, they really haven't been able to move the needle too much.
Look, if we talk about the top Nifty gainers, Agam, Eicher Motors was sitting with gains of close to 5 or 6%. So the dream run continues for the company. How are the numbers?
Absolutely, and it's just not stopping, because we've had a tremendous run for Eicher Motors. This time around, once again, sales for the Royal Enfields have grown as much as 33% year on year. So that's been a yet another outperforming number for Royal Enfields, and that's also the reason why you have seen the stock move up by as much as 5.5%
right.
today.
Maruti was a disappointment on the other hand?
Yes, it was. Maruti has just seen about a flattish sale of around 0.3% decline on a year-on-year basis. Exports is the one where we've seen a little bit of disappointment come in, which has declined by as much as nearly 28%. Remember, last month we saw exports for Maruti jump as much as 52%. So in contrast, it's not been a very good quarter for Maruti. But incidentally, I want to talk about Tata Motors, and this one is a little bit of surprise. In the month where we had the ouster of Cyrus Mistry, on possibly one of the reasons was the lack of performance in the passenger vehicle sales, we've seen Tata Motors go ahead and register about 28% growth in the passenger vehicle segment, the highest that we've seen in 4 years. Moreover, we've also seen the commercial vehicle sales move up by as much as 15%. Once again, it's one of the highest numbers where we've seen in this entire year. So it's certainly been a very, very good month in terms of volumes for Tata Motors. And finally, as far as Ashok Leyland is concerned, we've seen the stock come off a little by 1.5% in today's job trade, but sales have moved up by as much as 28%. So it most certainly will be taken as a positive going into the next few sessions.
Alright, so those are all your auto stocks and your biggest Nifty movers, but that apart, we also had some of the metal counters which are really rallying in trade today, and this is even as zinc prices touched their 5-year high on the London Metal Exchange. Now this was driven by positive data coming from China, so you have your Hindalco or Tata Steel, all of these sitting on gains of 3 to 4%. That apart, you also had Vedanta, Hindustan Zinc, Moil, NMDC, they're all trading upwards of 4%, and Hindustan Zinc actually hit a record high today. Even smaller names like JSPL, Bhushan Steel, SAIL were rallying about 2%. On the losing end, you had some private banks which were trading under pressure. So you had Axis Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, you have Yes Bank, all of these seeing losses of anywhere between 1 to 2%. You had some of the heavyweights, Nifty heavyweights like TCS, Infosys followed by Tech Mahindra. So all of these IT names are also trading weaker today, and you also had some pharma names like Sun Pharma and Cipla which were on the losing end. But that apart, we had tire stocks. You had MRF, TVS, Sri Chakra, JK Tires, all of these sitting on good gains of close to 3 to 4%. Agam, what else really stood out in the mid caps?
Well, very similar to the benchmarks, we've seen the advanced decline ratio more skewed towards the declines. So let's consider the Nifty 500 index, and that's where we are looking at around 279 declines as against 217 advances. With respect to gains, we have seen MOIL gain around 11%. Wellspun India also gaining nearly 9%, followed by OMDC. So, a lot of these metal companies have also started doing well. Century Textiles up around 8.5%, followed by PTC Financial and Balapur Industries. On the losing end, we have Kitex Garments reacting to its earnings. It has been a very disappointing quarter, which is why it's declined by as much as 15.4% today. GM Financial looking at profit booking. Similarly, Bharat Financial also reacting to its earnings, down as much as 3.8%. Some weakness coming in, perhaps profit taking in Navin Fluorine, which has been very strong over the last 1 month, and GlaxoSmithKline along with Piramal Enterprises also taking a knock of around 3.5% in today's day of trade. So overall, it's been a very mixed day of trade with respect to gainers and losers. But as far as the your advanced decline ratio is concerned, it's skewed towards declines.
All right, so that's all that we have for today. But going into this week itself, further into this week where we don't have any big earnings.
Right.
I believe all the companies are also taking an extended holiday.
Yes.
I'm not sure, but so no big earnings, but you have the FOMC meet later today, plus more importantly, you have the US presidential elections on November 8th and 9th, and that will be something which could rather lead to some volatility even in the Indian markets. So that's going to be the biggest event that the globe will actually be tracking in the coming week, and on the back of that, I guess Agam, IT and pharma stocks will have a more important role to play, or they will probably be watched a lot more.
You mentioned the US presidential elections. In the backdrop, we have FII outflows, continuous FII outflows. In fact, in the last 3 weeks, we've had a net outgo, and it's going to be a very interesting piece of variable where we could see a little more going out before the elections. So that's going to be another thing which could also move the markets to a certain extent. But that's what we have for so far.
That's correct. So thank you for watching Bloomberg Quint. We will see you at the same time tomorrow.